Hello from me, Lazarus. We continue with the next lesson from the HTML course. We are currently on Chapter 18, HTML5, Most Important Changes and Additions. We open the PDF file. In studying the individual HTML elements in the front chapters of the book, we've already covered a lot of HTML5 changes and additions. And in this chapter of the HTML part we'll look at some of the additional ones capabilities that are implemented through HTML5 and some changes we haven't mentioned yet. First point of this chapter is use, facilitated, of multimedia files, one of the latest possibilities in HTML5. We looked at it in the previous lesson, the facilitation of work with audio and video files, so the use of is no longer necessary external applications, plugins, for this purpose. We have already seen this at the audio and video elements which we discussed in the previous chapter 17. The next important thing is semantics, positioning and layout elements. The layout, that is the location of the main elements in the page, it has always been very important. It was done in several different ways. In the first sites it was used only text layout, then their frames came in, followed by tables. All these methods, however, are long gone obsolete and no longer in use, and their use is considered to be bad layout practice. It is mainly used in modern sites, the block layout. Like next to HTML5, this used to happen with div block elements. Here again let's look at the example from 8th chapter. This type of layout was achieved with 5 div elements, to which dimensions are assigned in a certain way for this layout. Yes, and now in HTML5 special elements are distinguished for this placement, individual blocks that already are called as these elements. That is, we have a header element, element nav, for navigation, element aside, for the sidebar, element section with article inside, and a footer element for the bottom. I have presented them here. No, let's stop in detail now at the moment. I think the purpose of is clear, every single element. Just here it's already semantic. By writing a header we know that it is about the header of the page. When we write nav, it's about navigation. By writing a footer, for the footer and so on. Third point, drawing elements, graphics and images. When drawing graphics elements and graphic figures, element a canvas is used, which however represents only container, and the drawing itself is done through the JavaScript programming language. In this way it is possible to create them animations, games, and so on. SVG also represents a container for SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics, graphics, that is, scalable vector graphics. SVG has several methods for drawing the paths, rectangles, circles, text, and graphics, but there is no way to look at it now in this tutorial in detail. The map tag is used to define the map image from Google Maps. Google Maps is a web mapping platform and user application offered by Google. The image map represents an image with areas, which can be clicked on. The figure element defines standalone content, photos, illustrations, diagrams. The picture element enables of web developers for more flexibility in setting of image resources. It contains two different elements, one or more source tags and an img tag. Fourth point is, interface for application programming for the web APIs. API is short for application programming interface and represents application programming interface for the network. It can expand browser or server functionality. There are several types of APIs: geolocation, drag and drop, web storage, web workers, JavaScript which works in the background. SSE from server-sent events. Summary: as we have already seen in all the material we have covered and we have studied so far, in HTML5 there is significant changes and many have been introduced new technologies and items. Some of the previous ones elements have been changed and standardized, and others tags, elements and attributes are completely removed. It is also emphasized on backward compatibility. HTML5 is not a problem for older versions of browsers, because it is made so that its new functions are simply ignored by them. Attributes related to the layout of items, no longer supported. The idea is, for such a layout to use CSS only. Too much emphasis on the use of semantic elements, which actually means you should be more search engine friendly, the robots and not so much for the humans. Of course, if all changes, additions, and newly introduced in HTML5 will be proved successful in practice, time will tell. In this chapter of the book, and in this lesson, there is no practical way to check out all the new items. More information can be found here. That's all for this tutorial. Best regards.